Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the full board meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item number 3, invocation. It was supposed to be Commissioner Carabelli, but we've asked a former county commissioner and current county clerk, Fred Miller. Would you please lead us?
Thank you, commissioners. So this comes from an interview that I read by the late great writer Kurt Vonnegut, and he said this about a prayer for writers, and seems to me it might be a prayer for commissioners and public servants as well. It was written by Samuel Johnson in 1753 on the day in which he was signed a contract requiring him to write the first complete dictionary of the English language. Here's the prayer. O God, who hast hitherto supported us, enable us to proceed in our labor and in the whole task of our present state, and then when we render up at the last day an account of the talent you've committed to us, may we receive pardon. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Item number 4, adoption of the agenda. Need a motion to adopt today's agenda. Commissioner Haw, supported by Commissioner Drollet. Please vote.
The motion passes 11-0.
Thank you. Item number 5, approval of minutes dated November 7th, 2019. Need a motion to approve. Commissioner Romano, supported by Commissioner Leonetti. Anything to discuss on this? If not, please vote.
The motion passes 11-0.
Thank you. Item number 6, public participation. Any members of the public wishing to speak? You have 5 minutes. All to do with what's on the agenda today. Come on up. Please give us your name and address, and you have 5 minutes. Welcome. Oh, I'm sorry. Push the middle button on the base of the microphone. There you go.
Mike Moreau.
Thank you.
Mike Moreau, Sterling Heights. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, good afternoon. The Macomb Art Authority will consider placing a millage on the March ballot in the amount of 0.2 mils. The Macomb Art Authority should postpone this request until our Art Authority agreement can be updated to include language to ensure effective fiscal oversight by this Board of Commissioners. The original millage was passed with the understanding that the revenue gained would be enough to fund an endowment and no further funding would be required. That promise has not been kept. Businesses, regional governments, and the DIA knew Detroit was on the brink of bankruptcy well before 2012. A look at how the DIA allocated certain funds gives insight into their fiscal priorities. An Oakland Press article from October 14th, 2014 stated that the director received a 13% increase in 2012, bringing his salary up to over $513,000. The DIA's executive vice president and chief operating officer was also given a 36% increase. Her salary was recorded at over $369,000. Both officers received another $50,000 bonus in 2012 as well, according to GuideStar.org. Detroit News article dated August 25th, 2015, reported that elected officials in Oakland County were outraged at the museum's decision to award $100,000 in bonuses to its top executives in 2012, the same year that the director and CEO appeared before Oakland County Commissioners saying that the museum was on the verge of financial collapse. The same August 25th Detroit News article further reported that the director will receive a retirement severance of $285,000 and forgiveness of an over $155,000 housing loan from the DIA. The total compensation package for the director and 2 executives totals $625,185 for fiscal years 2014 and 15. These raises, bonuses, and benefits were given knowing that the grand bargain obligated the DIA to pay $100 million to prop up Detroit's pension obligations. These compensation figures hardly reflect an institution in serious financial jeopardy with huge obligations, nor does it instill confidence in regarding future decisions involving the use of taxpayer dollars. I repeat for emphasis, the Macomb Art Authority should postpone a request for a millage until our Art Authority agreement can be updated to include language to ensure that effective fiscal oversight by this Board of Commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wishing to speak? Any other members of the public? Seeing none, we're going to close public participation. We are going to go into item number 7. We don't have any correspondence, any new correspondence from the county executive. So we'll go to item number 8, presentations. We have the DIA, Tri-County Millage Report. Dave Flynn, I need a motion to receive and file first. Commissioner Brown, supported by Commissioner Myjack.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioners of the Macomb County Commission. The DIA is proud to be out here today to present to you a update of the last 8 years and obviously discuss the millage before you today. With us from the DIA team, we have Salvador Slor-Pons, the CEO and President of the DIA. We have Rob Bowen, the Chief Operating Officer and Chief Financial Officer of the museum. We have Christine Klostra, who is the Executive Director of Marketing and Communications. We have Julie McFarland, Public Affairs Officer. And we have Jen Miller, who is your representative to the Art Authority. I'm not sure who's running the museum now, but I'm sure somebody is. With that said, obviously we come out here 3 times a year and we give annual update or talk about our program plan, the annual year-end report, the half-year report, and anytime the commission wants us to come out here to talk about very detailed information. And in your packet, you will find we've put together a tri-county report that has a lot of that detail, every single bit of information from our annual reports over the past 8 years, talking about what the service agreements required and where we actually ended up, talking about the programming that was instituted as a result of the millage. And you'll see a ton of information in there that we're happy to answer questions on today and into the future. You'll also see an information sheet behind that that has basic facts, frequently asked questions that people will have about the millage and where it stands and you know, how much revenue comes in from each of the different 3 counties and so on. You'll also see some promotional stuff that we have that we always pass out in terms of Thursdays at the museum. I know we have the Macomb Senior Advisory Committee, and I didn't plan this, but they were able to take advantage of that trip with some of the commissioners in the summer of 18. We also have some of our new exhibitions coming up, and we can answer questions about that, but I'm sure everybody wants to get a high-level review of what happened since the beginning of the millage. And, you know, I sat on that side of the table in the spring and the summer of 2012, and obviously the Board of Commissioners created the Art Authority, and the Art Authority placed it on the ballot in 2012, and then from there they created the service agreements that had 4 key pillars: free admission to general admission. They had free K-12 school trips with the transportation included. You had the professional development for teachers, that they could bring back those critical thinking skills to the classroom. We had our investment for our group senior trip, individual senior trip, as well as our community partnerships like Inside Out, public art making, things of that nature. And so since 2012, in Macomb County, we've had over 349,000 free general admission visits from residents throughout the area. We've had 84,000 Macomb County students on field trips with free bus transportation. And we've really grown in this area. When we started the millage, a grant covered kids to come down for the admission, but school districts had to pay for all of the transportation that was included. That grant no longer exists, but we were only serving 30,000 students throughout the area. And in Macomb County alone, we're serving about 15,000 each year, and throughout the region, 62,000. This is a program that's growing significantly, and we've created long-term agreements with Utica, which was created earlier in the millage, but new recent ones are Lance Cruz, where every 3rd, 5th, and 7th grader is going to come down to the museum. Warren Consolidated, every 3rd grader. And so we're working district by district to make sure that there's a continuum of education, and these aren't just one-off deals. And as you can see, we put together a kind of a recap of what the school program means. We've done tons of community research, and out of all the things we offer, parents and grandparents want their kids to have an opportunity to come down to the museum and experience something they don't think exists in the classroom anymore.
We have 62,000 students from Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb counties that visit the museum on free field trips every year. I think of art as the vehicle that we use to really teach all the other subjects. It's how we learn about science, how we learn about social studies, math, language arts.
Art is really the windows to the world. It takes you back in history. So you get to see how people lived back then, the artifacts that are here.
It's not just the object, but it's the stories of the artists and how they created the object.
Everyone has a different way of expressing art, so seeing stuff that doesn't come from Detroit, it's something new and refreshing.
I think that museums offer kids an opportunity to experience cultures that they may never get to experience.
It's kind of magical. I think they can appreciate the art in a different way than if they see the artwork on a screen or on a computer.
They take with them so many questions and connections to what we learn in school and to the rest of the world.
The DIA is a leader in education in this region. What it offers is a world-class, and I truly mean a world-class institution, and all the resources that we have here.
I hear from so many teachers that they would never be able to manage a trip to the DIA because of the cost of busing for field trips, but we do provide busing to schools within the Tri-County area.
Since 2013, the DIA has provided $1.4 million worth of free bus transportation to support student field trips to the museum. And the only reason that we can make any of this happen is because of the community's support that this institution has. It's what makes all this possible.
Come here, join us.
If you go, you're going to love it.
And so with that, obviously, teachers are a huge role in our educational programming. And so we've seen over 10,000 Tri-County educators come down and receive that professional development that they can bring down to their classroom. And this isn't just art. This is history, science, reading, mathematics. And what we've done is, with the community colleges, we're training all their full-time faculty in VTS, visual training strategies, especially with first responders and nurses, because we know there's enough data to show that this really helps them evaluate a crisis situation, and it's something that they can bring back to their classroom and provide to their students. So there's a huge multiplier effect to that. When it comes to seniors, we have over 259 senior groups that have come down to the museum and received free transportation. And this program really struggled at the beginning in Macomb, but over the past 2 years has grown. We were supposed to provide 35 trips each year per our agreement, and last year we were at 67, and this year we should be well above 70. So we're almost doubling that now, and we really have that program off the ground. And for seniors who can't come down to the museum, we have a behind-the-scenes program where we have volunteers and IPVs go down to local senior centers and actually give presentations on art and culture and things at the DIA.
I can remember coming down here as a child with Mom and Dad and my brothers, and I remember the sarcophagus that they had there and the artwork in the Great Hall, and coming back and seeing it, and it's like, wow, it's still there. I remember all those things.
When you come here, you're exploring the world.
When you can be in Detroit and see a Van Gogh or Diego Rivera, these are such treasures. It's right here and it's accessible.
I think that seniors have an opportunity when they come here to really have an enriching experience.
They have access to everything here.
great food, great art.
Hopefully great internet. Well, I think you get the picture. And the last of our pillars are community engagement partnerships that we have with nonprofit organizations. As you can see, Inside Out has been something that really has become recognizable. People want this in their local downtowns. They want this along their parks and their trails. They want this in their neighborhoods because they know it adds to the quality of life, and people really enjoy these throughout their neighborhoods and communities. And last but not least, in nonprofit partnerships, one of the things that has become really popular is public art. And as you can see, we celebrated with Commissioner Brown and Senator Lucido and a lot of people in Romeo this amazing mural that we worked with the Starkweather Arts Academy on that shows the history of the city of Romeo and the village of Romeo. And we have one in Warren, we have one in Sterling Heights, and we're going to invest more in the future in these if we can, because they know these are things that last in the community and will be there for generations to come. And so before I pass it off to Salvador, obviously, you know, we're not a perfect institution, but we have made great strides in the community to be relevant, to be impactful, to actually go out and listen to what people in this region want. We know that we're proud to serve every day the citizens who actually pay for this millage that allow us to provide all these great benefits to community members. We know that we have a ways to go in terms of awareness, of letting people know that they have all these great benefits that they can experience. But we're working extremely hard every day. We're not taking anything for granted. And we want to earn the opportunity to go before voters. And obviously the process is that the Art Authority would be the body that puts this and places this on the ballot on behalf of the county. But we want to be out in front of you. You've been our partner since the beginning, along with the Executive Office and the Art Authority. And as a courtesy, we want to come out here and be as transparent as possible, and we want to answer any and all questions that you have. And so with that, I'll pass it along to Salvador, and then we'll answer any questions.
Thanks, Dave, and thanks for the commission to having us here today. In 2012, when this millage was approved and voted by the residents of Macomb County, there were two things that the management team at the DI didn't know, and that we know today. First, that the museum was going to become independent from the city of Detroit. We own the collection, we own the building, we own the grounds, and we own our destiny. And two, and more importantly, is that this millage was going to change the culture of the organization. We've been very grateful for the financial support, but we're even more grateful for this millage because it has really changed the way that we work, the way that we operate. In the past, we were an organization that was looking inwards, generally speaking. Today, we're looking outward. We go beyond the walls of the museum to serve the communities through our service agreement. And we have become a tool for the community, and I believe, and I do believe, that we are changing people's lives. Of course, there's a lot of things that we want to continue doing, a lot of things that we can improve in terms of transparency, in terms of programming, but you have helped us be a leader in education. This county has helped us be an institution that is part of the comeback of Southeast Michigan. This county has helped the DIA to provide experiences that people cannot find in books, in TV, or the internet. Really, it was from this county commission that came to us the idea of doing a Star Wars exhibition. This thing at the DIA 8 years ago would have never happened. Today, we are a better institution thanks to you. And as Dave was mentioning, we want the voters to vote on this, to really see or to let us know if they want this organization to continue to be the way it is now. We really have improved so much thanks to Macomb County, and we would like the support from this commission to move forward with our work. So now Dave and I are here for any questions that you might have.
Yeah. Well, hold on a second. I'm not sure that we're going to allow I have to think about this. I'm going to take commissioners' questions first, but you guys, I'm going to ask, let me just introduce you guys first. There are a lot of members here from our Older Adult Committee, Older Adult Advisory Committee. What I'm hoping to do is, if you guys get your questions in mind, maybe right after this, if you guys could stick around for a little bit and maybe go into the committee room and speak directly to them about your questions, because we're going to go into closed session after this. But we generally don't let audience members ask questions of the people in the agenda, if that's okay. You'll get personal one-on-one treatment after. Commissioner Kleinfeld?
Thank you, Chair. I've struggled with this whole concept. I don't know, I can't remember if you were with me, Dave, when I met with Mr. Gargaro over what happened with the bonuses after the millage passed the first time around, specifically with the individual that was already gone, that received an after-the-fact bonus. I was absolutely livid about that. I believe you guys have done wonderful work. I see the advancement in the interaction with seniors and with students, and I do think you're heading in the right direction. The reason I'm struggling with this whole thing is he told me at that meeting that the DIA would not be back for another millage, that it wasn't going to be necessary, that seeking that millage was all that, on top of letting me know that we don't have any control over the salaries because it had been moved into the private funding area. And my position then was, yes, it had, but that's money that can't be used for other purposes in the museum. So that was one of the reasons I struggled, but the other one really isn't related to you guys at all. It's the fact that our residents are going to be looking at a jail millage. There's a discussion on a Martha T. millage. There's a discussion on roads millage. We don't even know what, like, huh? The ISD, I've seen the ISD millage all coming next year. And I have questions about this rapid transit, which I'll be asking about under new business, but those are the ones that we know about, all in the same year, which is unfortunate, the timing of that. So I'm not saying I'm against or for, because I'm pulled in different directions, and the salaries do bother me because I know that they are consistent with other museums across the United States, but I also know that the museums that they're consistent with aren't funded by taxpayer dollars. And I don't know what, the last time, I don't know what the President of the United States makes now, but the last time when it first came up, the President of the United States did not make what that DIA director made. To me, that seemed a little bit outrageous when so much of the money was coming from taxpayer dollars. And I'll end by saying, looking at your chart, so the money that comes in is $25 million, and the operating cost is $37 million, which means that only $13 million isn't coming from the actual millage itself. Do I have that information correct?
Correct. The millage tends to cover between 2/3, 66, and 70% of our operating budget.
Okay.
Based on revenues for that current year.
Okay. Could you just briefly explain what happened to the we won't be coming back to now? What happened in between those two?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that we could answer. First, bonuses. Obviously, that was something that was done actually before the millage. It was something the DI should not have done. Those two executives at the museum are not there now. And Salvador's salary and the chief operating salary are significantly less than the people who were there 8 years ago. Take on inflation. But Amendment 2 was supposed to address this, that any raises for those top two individuals need to be taken to the Art Authority. if any of the operating public funds are used.
Okay, and then I don't know with respect to what's going on currently. I've seen it in other institutions with CEOs that make far more than that. I have an issue with home loans, bank loans, low-interest loans. We'll give you this money.
As you should, and that none of those exist at the DIA, and it's a policy that no executives receive bonuses at the museum.
Because in other companies nationwide, you always see the CEOs forgiven those monies when they leave. So it's sort of a, so I appreciate that that doesn't exist anymore as well. So you've given me two good pieces of information, and I appreciate that.
And Salvador will answer the one time.
Well, as I mentioned in my brief remarks, when the management team proposed to or seek the millage in 2012, they didn't know two things. First of all, is that the DIA was going to be an independent organization from the city of Detroit, and that we were going to own the collection, the building, and the grounds. And they didn't know either that the museum would have changed its culture into a completely new place whereby we are providing a service and having interaction with the counties and the residents and the visitors that is not to be found in any other museum in the country. And we have experts and museum professionals from all over the country come to see how this is done, because it's a great system. So we would like to continue doing this thing, because this millage has made the museum one of the best museums in the country in terms of service. And we would like to have this voted by the voters. When the legislator in Lansing approved this millage, it was approved for 20 years. We only asked for 10 years then. And it's possible, that management at the time said that they would come only one time, but I don't think this was a directive from our board of directors. So we just want to have this opportunity to really continue with this partnership. We have learned so much as an institution that we are a better place now, and it's not because of the funding, it's because of the partnership. Our system is to co-create things with the community to provide services that are meaningful to them. And when the community comes to the museum, they feel themselves reflected. Or when we are in the community, like we were in Romeo a month ago, the community is excited to see murals in their community that speak about the history and tradition in Detroit. It's like bringing Diego Rivera to Romeo. And this is an opportunity that we would like to continue to have. And that's why we're here today, to really have the voters judge our work and have them decide.
And I am very impressed, and so I want you to know I'm very impressed. I went to the DIA before this whole thing came together, and the traffic was not there. It was almost like a ghost town when I went through it. So it has changed dramatically. There's no question in my mind. I also just want you to know I've asked for some compensation information, but on the lower end as well. I'm curious to see how the people at the bottom, not by name. I haven't asked by name. I want you to know that. I've asked by a group at the top and a group at the bottom, not by name, just to get an idea of how the DIA is also compensating those that are at the bottom levels as well.
And we're happy to provide that. And I think if our CEO could talk about how we benchmark compensation across other museums and other organizations for those specific positions, I think that would be helpful to the board.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Good afternoon. As Dave said, we go through fairly extensive benchmarking to determine hourly wage rates and salary rates for our staff. We use a broader range of benchmarks depending on the position. Some are local, some are national. It all depends on the position. And We've gone through extensive reviews of all that. Some of our staff members are our bargaining unit, and so then they negotiate their wages. But we've worked very hard on that and try to be transparent internally as well on our compensation practices because it's a great interest to our staff.
Thank you. And I think it's important to note that the only raises that are given to anybody at the museum are given as a merit-based, and there aren't annual increases. Each year they're evaluated based on performance. And that pool has typically been between 2% and 3%.
Thank you. Commissioner Drollet.
I'll leave Salvador for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And before I get into the meat of my comments and questions, real quick, based on some of the things that was asked by Commissioner Kleinfeld, is the DIA a public or a private institution with regards to its operation? Otherwise, are you subject to FOIA? I mean, is it a public entity or is it a private entity?
We're private.
Private. And what percent of the funds?
We file our 990s each year, like any other nonprofit organization.
Okay, so it's
where
private.
You can see salaries, you can see our biggest vendors, things of that nature.
But 2/3 of the funding comes from the public, correct?
Correct. That's right. Yep.
Okay. My comments and questions. Number one, of course, I concur with almost everything that was been said about the redirection of the museum. There's no question about that. That the folks, Salvatore, yourself, the board, David, everybody involved has done above and beyond what is maybe considered necessary to try and find ways to make it a public-facing institution and museum. And so that's absolutely commendable, obviously. I still struggle with, Macomb County provides about $5.5 million a year toward that. According to the information you provided us, we had 15,000 students in 2018. That, if we that would come to about $180,000 in tickets or $250,000 in support when it comes to buses and that sort of thing. Same with seniors. Even if we doubled that amount and said, all right, we're going to pay for the tickets for every senior who wants to go and pay for every student, it'll come to about $500,000, not $5.5 million. Now I know that, so the bulk of the money is helping support the museum's broad operations and broad outreach and things that it does. But for $500,000 a year, we could buy tickets for everybody that goes and quote unquote save money. So I'm not going to delve into the pay raises in the past or the sins of the past or the one-time millage promise. You guys have already gone over that. I would ask this. I would challenge you to go ahead and see if the public really supports this museum and if your ideas have worked by not hiding it on the March ballot. By putting it on a ballot where the highest number of citizens are likely to participate. By not looking for a way to avoid the citizens voting on this, by being proud of the work that you've done and putting it out there on a ballot where there's going to be a large number of voters that are participating. It appears that by putting on the March ballot, the goal is to minimize voter impact. Find an election. This millage doesn't expire for 2.5 years. And it looks as if an election was found to try and find a way to make sure the smallest number of people are likely to come out and pick the voters that we think might be our most likely supporters, instead of saying, we're public-facing, we're embracing the public, we want the public to support our museum. Go to the public. Let citizens vote in a November election, or at least an August election, by looking to minimize public votes on this issue, which whatever the arguments are, there's going to be another millage on that ballot, there might be something we don't know what's going to happen in a presidential election. All those things are true, but no election would be perfect. So pick one where the public really is going to be involved. Don't hide from the public. Don't try and sneak this through. It's already looking like it's 2.5 years early. An election that we told were never going to happen by your predecessors. And now it's happening, and it's happening in a way that doesn't look right. So I would ask that you reconsider putting this on a March ballot and embrace the voters and make your case to as many voters as possible. And let's see if the work that you've done is resonating. Because I still have a hard time going to somebody who's making $15 an hour and telling them that they have to work an extra hour so somebody else can go to the museum that they may not want to go to, or somebody who's making $12 an hour, or somebody who's having a hard time making a payment for their car or for their house that month. Tell them they got to work a little longer a little harder, even though they may not want to go to the museum, so somebody who does want to go can go for free. So that would be my challenge. I would challenge you to really, really be honest and be straightforward and put this on an election where citizens are actually going to be going out to vote. I guess that's not a question, that's a comment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Any comment to that? Commissioner Haw.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was waiting for the question in that as well, but I guess I didn't hear it. So we went through the same discussion with the jail millage, by the way, guys, so don't feel it's personal. I think I'll admit, and I think most everybody else, you guys have the jewel in the country. There's no doubt about that. The service has increased. You've done a phenomenal job. The expansion, you're going to have to excuse me, I have a terrible cold that Phil gave me. The expansion to the outside communities that have taken place, just, again, phenomenal. There was and Dave, you and Salvador get a tremendous amount of credit as well as the CEO. The Art Authority that you spoke of, you had indicated you were previously in that chair over there. What is it you are looking for this board to do? First question. Second, Salvador had mentioned it was originally looked at it being a 20-year millage. Somehow it ended up a 10-year millage. And
I can speak to both of those.
okay. Then I've got three
The
and
second
four.
question first is when I was chair, on this board, the the Detroit Institute of Arts asked for a 20-year millage, and Wayne allowed them to go up to 20 years, but Macomb and Oakland said, for a brand new millage that we've never had any evidence on, we can't pass that. We can't go before our constituents, and so we put that to 10 years. And so we said, at that time, earn the right to come back for another millage.
Thank you.
And to the first question, which was, I'm sorry, could you repeat it? I'm getting old. I'm not as young as I used to be over there.
You're telling me that?
What the board does, so basically
What is it you're asking the board
So
to
the
do?
Art Authority is the agent body of the county, similar to the Zoo Authority or similar to Community Mental Health or Drain Board. And their appointees, two of them are appointed strictly from the County Commission, which are Jennifer Miller and Ed Bruley. The executive has 2 appointments, and then there's 3. One has to be a higher education person in Macomb, one has to be a K-12 person, and one has to be in the art community. And those 3 are nominated by the executive and confirmed by the Board of Commissioners. And it would be that body that places it on the ballot. And you can ask the representative from the Art Authority, and I see the county attorney here as well.
So, Harold, just to tell you, obviously the Art Authority can vote any way that they want on this millage, but I think they're here to realize that, the Art Authority, at least our 2 members, might go the way that our board feels, right, on the vote. So they kind of want to hear, I think, at the end of the day, how we feel about this before Ms. Miller and Mr. Bruley go cast their vote. So ours is more of a
Advisory
support.
vote?
Correct. And we're not voting on anything today.
Okay.
And it's
That-
basically
that's a
just to
good
be as
thing, too.
transparent as we can, and we're doing this with all 3 counties.
Okay, the gentleman that appeared under public participation talked about a fiscal accountability by the county commissioners here. Do we have fiscal accountability with anything that transpires with the DIA?
Well,
Or
we
is
come
it
out and
all the
report
Art
3 times
Authority?
a year, but our main direct contact is the Art Authority. But we also post our financial documents online. We have a 990, and we're submitted to an independent program audit that shows that the dollars that came into the museum were properly spent on programming throughout the counties. So they'll even track down, once in a while you have a school that's on the border of a different district, and they'll say you allocated it to the wrong school district. So it's extremely comprehensive audit.
And I don't doubt that. I'm just trying to clarify, this commission here has no fiscal accountability. Is that correct? I mean, we don't approve your expenditures or your salaries or anything like that. We have no oversight.
Just not a
Yes, through your representatives.
It's rarely we get a yes or no answer.
I don't want to say that you don't have any oversight because right now this is oversight. I mean, we're here, you know, there could be reporters, there could be members of the public, and we're here to answer those questions.
Well, the reason I asked the question is we're going through a huge budgetary process right now, and I don't want the public to get confused that there's going to be a line item in there that says DIA and we're allocating funds or not allocating funds on that. So that was the purpose. I'm not questioning how you do it or what you're doing. I just want the general public to understand we're not doing it.
Got it.
Thanks.
Commissioner Leonetti.
Thanks for that.
Thank you,
answer,
Mr. Chair.
too.
You done?
Yes, I was done.
Two questions, essentially. So I want to talk about the current millage from 2012 to 2022. You indicated several times that one of the things that was not foreseen was the fact that the DIA would become independent of the city of Detroit. Now, I'm going to assume that's because of the bankruptcy, and if it is, can you explain how that had an impact on the funds that you received in this millage that we have right now? How do you feel that that's shortchanged you money that you're coming now and asking for more in some way?
Well, I think the fact that we became independent from the city of Detroit allows the museum to be a much more attractive organization for philanthropy. And while the funding that comes from the Tri-County allows for a beautiful, a very strong operational platform, that does not allow for special exhibitions like the ones that we are organizing. The fact that we do the Star Wars exhibition, the fact that we do Van Gogh exhibition or Detroit Collects the Detroit-style car design exhibition next year. This is thanks to the fact that we are able to raise funding, and in recognition for that operational platform that the counties guarantee, we offer significant discounts for the residents of Oklahoma and Macomb County. And many times in this commission, I have come and said and shared with all of you how proud I am that there are years in which all the exhibitions are free. Like this year, we have 3 main exhibitions, Humble and Human, Detroit Collects, and a number of other exhibitions that have been free for the residents of Oklahoma and Macomb County. And I'm trying hard to get them as free as possible. The museum also had to raise, as it was brought before, $100 million that was given to the city of Detroit so they would pay the pensions of the pensioners. That was a significant effort on our part. That allowed the DIA to become independent from the city, but at the same time hindered our fundraising efforts because we cannot go back to those foundations or those individuals to ask for money again. Still, because we have this very, as I mentioned, beautiful and strong operational platform that is guaranteed by the Tri-County, we are able to create amazing programs and exhibitions like museums like the Metropolitan Museum or National Gallery in Washington do to bring them here to Detroit to show the great value that we bring to the region. So I hope this answers your question.
Gives us some insight that it was about $100 million that had to be paid to the city of Detroit, and obviously you tapped into resources in order to achieve that, so I get that. The second question goes along with the gentleman that spoke at public participation. I think he urged, and it kind of follows up with Commissioner Hawes' question, he urged, what's the business model here? Why are you coming now? We've got 2 more years yet before we really have to address this, and what is the business model and why do you need the money? And I've heard transparency. Explain to us how you're going to be transparent if it passes. You know what I mean?
Well, we are following the example of the zoo that came 2 years before the expiration of the millage, and we feel we need to come early to be proactive as an organization that wants to do good business. So if I am going to guarantee the programs and exhibitions that are going to be happening in 2023, I better be prepared for it. I better have my funding guarantee, my team's guarantee, my ideas guarantee. So if we put this in front of the voters today or in March, they would, and they vote to support it, that would allow me for the necessary planner to continue be successful with the work that we're doing.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Hello.
I'm going to echo some of the things the other commissioners said as far as what you have accomplished. And it's been great. It really has been great. And it might sound funny, but when you leave and after you make your presentations before us, I feel warm and fuzzy, if there's such an expression, because I know what is being accomplished down there. But going right immediately to Commissioner Leonetti's statement here about 2023, and you want to look forward to having something prepared, who knows what the economy is going to be in 2023? So if I was in your position, and I'm not criticizing or pointing fingers, I would certainly present that millage now also while the economy is good, because in 2023, if it goes to pot, you might have a heck of a time trying to get that approved. Just a thought on my end. So I have a question for you, David, if I may. You have you added a public affairs department to the DIA. Is that correct?
Correct. It used to be.
And how many people are in that public affairs department?
1, 2, 2.5. 2 full-time positions, 1 part-time position.
Okay, so I'm asking this question, and if I'm out of line, just say, Joe, you're out of line. Everybody's talking about salaries, about this guy made this or that. What do the salaries? Give me the 3 top executives at the DIA. What do they make? Do you have that number?
I can provide that to you.
Sal, do you have that number?
Salvador's obviously the highest.
I'm looking for numbers. I'm not looking who's the highest, who's the lowest. So top 3.
Well,
and if you approximate, they're fine too. I'm just trying to put it.
I can give you my salary. I'll need to look at the other ones because I don't know how they have evolved. My salary is $475,000.
And we have 2 more executives. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
I can give you the other 2 if you want.
Please.
The top 3. As the COO, CFO, I'm at 245.
Go ahead.
And then our director, or our senior vice president of development and advancement is at 300.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. How many objects do we have? And I'm asking because I don't know. How many objects do you have sitting downstairs in that cellar? And I quote you to the Vatican, and please forgive me for using that comparison. But like everybody says, that, Vatican's got tons and tons of money down there, but they don't want to disseminate that to any of the people. How many objects do you have down there in that basement that you could possibly sell for revenue that are just sitting there collecting dust? That's my question to Salvador, if I may.
We belong to the Association of our museums directors in the United States, and we follow their rules and bylaws. The museum cannot sell art to pay for operation expenses. We can sell art and with that revenue buy more art for the museum. If we were to sell a work of art to pay for our operations, we'll be expelled from this association of museums, and this will be a significant loss for the entire region. I will not be able to organize Van Gogh exhibitions. I will not be able to organize any exhibition, get any loans from any place.
Got it. Okay. Well, here's another question I have for you. And I'm looking at your form that you have sent out. How has the DIA's financial position improved since the millage was approved in 2012? And you said, even with these gains, renewal of the millage is necessary to keep the DIA running until the endowment can be increased to necessary levels. What are the necessary levels?
We need at least $600 million to provide the services that we're providing today.
Okay.
That is $600 million in 2022, and that would be $800 million in 2032.
Okay. And my last question is, again, going back to Detroit Collects, your brochure that you sent out. Detroit Collects celebrates Detroit's rich history. You had an exhibition catalog, reviews the history of collecting African American art, and you had a lot of that was given to you by people contributing to purchase this. How much did the museum contribute to purchase this?
This exhibition was organized with generous loans from people living in the community. We don't purchase any of the art. These works of art belong to private collections, and they are going to be, until March, on view at the DIA on loan from these private collections. We are not buying this art.
No cost.
This is it's the cost for the museum is to organize the exhibition, which is to design the exhibition, to ship the art from the homes to these collectors to the museum, to prepare the interpretation, and other related costs for exhibitions.
This is something that's normally done when you have exhibitions like this from donors that come up. Do you have numbers for, what I'm looking for is, I see the cost and I'm looking for what's going out the door, what's coming in the door, and naturally you wouldn't be here if there was more money coming in than going out, and I understand that. But I look at some of these numbers and they're a little frightening, and it bothers me a little bit, and I'm thinking, well, maybe we should start charging. It's nice that you get it free, and listen, I'm the first one to sing accolades about having the kids come in because it's something that enriches them as they're growing, but maybe there's something that we should be charging. Maybe we shouldn't give the residents free admission. Maybe a nominal charge will help offset some of these charges. That's my own personal opinion, and that's all I have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. You know, when the DA was first put on, I was one of the most vocal critics on the board, opposing it for a lot of reasons. But the turnaround that's occurred down there and the leadership that's been exhibited has, it surpassed my expectations. You're doing good things, and there's no doubt about it. I'd like to know, what is the amount of the endowment at present? What's the number you need to get to? The thing was, at the time we were going to pass this millage, we were going to raise the amount of money to get into that endowment fund so we could stop funding it. It would self-fund itself. How close are we to that goal? Will we ever get to that goal?
We are working to get to the goal of having an endowment that is strong enough that can provide services to the counties the way that we provide today. Yeah. So when we're hoping as soon as possible, I mean, the goal would be by 2032 to have an endowment that is strong enough that can provide these services to the Tri-County.
And obviously things change and the market changes, the economy changes. Yeah. In 2012, the DI had $91 million in its endowment. It has $231 million in its endowment. In 2022, to provide the services, it would be $600 million, and in 2032, it would be $800 million.
What percentage of the revenue from the millage would go towards that endowment?
Zero. We don't. The millage doesn't go to the endowment. It's just to provide the services and to keep the operational platform that allows the museum to operate every day.
And allows us not to draw down on our endowment.
Exactly.
So that we have it fully 100% invested. And over the past 3 years, we've had, I believe, 9.1% rate of return on that fund.
Okay.
Which is at the top 25%.
Sure. I'd like, the March millage, having it at a March millage, is disappointing to me too, because I mean, this is something we should be proud of. I mean, I'm very proud of the work you've done down there. You've done great things, and it's something to brag about. To me, it's was politically not very smart having it at a March, because it looks like you're trying to avoid the people. I mean, just the optics, at least from my point of view, from my background, that looks like we're trying to avoid something rather than embracing it. And that decision's not final though, right? That the board could make it. You could change your mind, correct? You could change it and say, well, we're going to have it in August, or we're going to have it in November. There's nothing that's been put in stone, is there? That
would be up to the art authorities to decide.
Well, I know it's the art authority, but the art authority has the ability to amend that date if they want to, correct? If they thought there was good enough reason, because there's a lot of advocates like me that were real negative, but I've moved my position a lot because of the good work that's been done down there, and people like me be willing to brag about it and get behind it, instead of like the old days trying to hide it and just get the minimum amount of people you got out there to vote for it, and hoping not enough of the negative people come out. I'd be more bullish and be more confident rather than not confident on this vote. But that's their call. But
The Wayne County Art Authority placed this on the ballot last Wednesday. Oakland County has a meeting later in this week for their Art Authority on Thursday.
Nothing's going to change.
No, I'm just saying that that's the process that has happened, and it'd be up to the Macomb Art Authority to make that decision.
Don, can I just want to straighten this out. I'm pretty sure, though, that if Macomb County does not agree to it, that it does not go on the ballot for Oakland and Wayne, correct? I think it's all
No,
or
it's
nothing.
not on the ballot, it's approval of the millage. So in your articles of incorporation, I think it's Article 4, Section 5, or Section 5, Article, or Paragraph 4, it says that if Macomb passes the millage and Oakland or Wayne don't, that Macomb doesn't have to be part of the millage. But that's on passage, not on being on the ballot.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Myjack.
Just on that note, explain that again. So being on the ballot, where are we right now for the other counties as of today? Just curiosity.
Wayne placed it on the March ballot last Wednesday.
Okay.
Oakland Art Authority has a meeting on Thursday to make whatever decision they make. And I think Macomb is still putting their schedule together, but I'd leave that up to your Art Authority member.
I hope
Miller.
we're still talking on December 3rd, because we're looking at a resolution for this board to kind of give them some direction, and that was going to be on the 2nd based on the fact that your meeting was going to be on the 3rd for that. Is that still on? I just want to be clear.
Let's hear from Jen.
Yes, we were asked to vote on November 12th. People brought up some concerns about lack of information and transparency. We now have a different process why we are here. We are asking for a study session, which we have just scheduled, to start asking our questions about what the renewal agreement would be, what additions would be in the agreement. Would it be the same renewal? Could we renegotiate the agreement? What exactly are the numbers that are working? What aren't? If our senior citizen component of the agreement is under, maybe we want more students. We have a lot of questions on the agreement itself and the parameters of the terms of the agreement before we could even begin to vote on the millage itself. And then working with Chairman Smith, I asked for some direction from you as your representative. I feel very strongly that I am your representative on how this is working, and that I take direction from you. Commissioner Kleinfeld, if you remember, on the raises, Dave Flynn was the former chair and passionately voted against, and the board did a resolution against the DIA raises, and I voted and was the only vote at that meeting against the raises that the DIA gave its executive staff based on the resolution of this board. I take my role very seriously as your representative, and so we're going to get that study session, get some more clarity. Then December 2nd, in working with Commissioner Chairman Smith, we're looking for direction from you, and then a vote is scheduled at this time, December 3rd.
Thank you.
So with that, that seems like Jen has all of her ducks in order, really going to look at this to a fine-tooth comb a lot more than what we're doing right here. So I'd feel almost more comfortable as a board just letting them do their work. That's just where I'm coming from there. But a couple things here. Yes, the DIA is a wonderful place. I can recall Commissioner Leonetti and myself had our gym, our music and our art taken away. We were at North Elementary, so that was Warren Kahn back in the late 70s. They didn't have funding for that. So when I see all the wonderful work you guys are doing and have all of our elementary kids go there, I mean, what a great opportunity with that. So help me out here to recall some of the history of the millage. So the DIA Authority placed this on the ballot for 2012 in August, and it passed for 10 years. So normally, just for everyone's information, normally when a ballot initiative is placed on a ballot and people decide on it, usually it goes back on that same time frame. So in other words, SMART for 20 years has been placed always on the August primary. Okay, this last November, the city of Sterling Heights, they had their second renewal for a police, fire, roads millage. It was placed in the same time frame, so to speak. So obviously March is different. March is not August. But just looking at some numbers here, a guesstimate, in my perspective, March is probably a 10 to 15% turnout. I'd say August would be maybe 20 to 30%. And then November is 60 to 70% turnout. And I made this case, nothing with you guys, but just millages in general. To go from this August to November is 300,000 more voters. So that is quite a bit. And there are other proposals out there, but that's for the voters to decide, not for us, what they want to choose or not choose. And so one other thing for you, Dave. So you got Wayne on there. So help me understand. So Wayne and Oakland could potentially be on the March ballot. And then Jen and the Arts Authority, if they come to you and say, well, we want to choose either August or November, that's okay for the whole process. Is that correct?
They have their the prerogative to place it on whatever
Gotcha.
ballot they choose. And
Okay.
Oakland hasn't made a decision one way or the other yet.
Right.
They have a meeting on Thursday.
Okay.
But to run an effective campaign on behalf of the DIA, it would make a lot more sense to be on one centralized ballot.
Gotcha. Okay. And finally, the last question. Let's say you have, like you said, all 3 counties on one ballot, say March. Let's say one county votes no on it, votes say 40 to 60% against. That county would no longer be a participant in the DIA, but the other 2 counties that passed it would. Is that correct?
Correct.
So a county could potentially lose out on a lot of
Correct.
services that we're getting right now.
Correct, and I think the language that was put in to the Articles of Incorporation were because the Detroit Institute of Arts was part of the Detroit city government, and people were worried that if it did go into bankruptcy, that they wanted to have that ability to be out, because I don't think that in any millage that this board has that I've ever seen that language appears anywhere. And so we're not sure why that just applies to the DIA at this time now that we're independent, but that's really the only place it does.
Thank you, gentlemen, for coming here today, and Jen and your Arts Authority Board, looking forward to what you guys are looking to get into this really deeply with all the micromanagement and numbers, and that's what we need. And we thank you for your service, and hopefully we'll hear back from you through our board chair on decision your board. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Madam Chair.
What'd you just call me? Commissioner Kraft. It's all right.
It's because she didn't want to sit next to me, Commissioner Vyjack. Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right, gentlemen, as you know, we're in the heart of our budget season right now, and we're dealing with transparency, and we have a couple goals of not spending more than we take in. So I have a little bit of homework for the COO down there. I'm a visual learner. So I'd like a couple pie charts, if you don't mind. I'd like expenses and revenues, and I'd like that broken down into what's operational, what's personnel, and all that good stuff. Because I want to know, now that you guys are independent, you have to pay for the building, pay for the lights, all that good stuff. I'd like to see the breakdown of costs versus what you're bringing in, if that would be acceptable. And I don't know if any other commissioners would like that as well, but I personally would like that. So thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for coming today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
That's fine. And will we have these questions sent to us all together, or? Okay.
Crystal will take care of it and send you the questions. Commissioner Joel, you're on the second round. I have a few things that I want to. Oh, Commissioner Sauger, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Dave, I'm just wondering, we received this question on the raises, payouts of houses and all that other stuff. That was 4 years ago. Is that finished now? When stuff like this comes up, you guys are going to analyze this stuff and look into it thoroughly rather than rubber stamp.
There are no
like
bonuses that are paid to any museum employee, including executive team. There's one person that has a contract with the museum. It is Salvador. The rest of us, outside of those who are collective bargaining agreements, are at-will employees of the museum, and transparency measures such as Article 2 have been incorporated to make sure that that doesn't happen again.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I have two things. One, I want to touch back on the legislature. It did authorize 20 years at first. And I do remember us talking about we should do it for 10 years first and see how it goes. And unfortunately, there was some, I think, too much talk by some people that it was going to be a one-time only. But I do remember the talk way back when that let's not do 20, let's do 10, let's see how everything goes, and then we'll go from there. So I do want to kind of recount some of the conversation that I remember having with Dave and with, you weren't here then, but Gene back in the days about that. So this was not originally, presented off the bat as just 10 years, one time only. I imagine that probably some of the sales for the millage, some of that might have come out, and I'm sure you wish right now that it wouldn't have come out that way, but it did. I do remember us having a wait-and-see attitude, and obviously most of us, and probably all of us, would agree that what you guys have done, especially since you've joined the group, Salvador, not so much you, Dave, has been very impressive. And I will say that it's taken that the DIA from kind of an institution of, that's over there up on its, kind of in ivory towers, to an institution of the people. And I love that you can go down there. It's fun. It's not, let's just say it's snobby. It's felt like it used to be that way. And I really like everything that you guys have done. I certainly would like to see this continue on. I understand going for something like this 2 years early. I think the business side of it says, if this was to just end and you were to do it at the last minute, what do we do at that moment? I mean, that's a big difference, right, in your budgeting, right? That you would have to have 2 complete plans set to go in place at that very minute that this thing either passes or fails in 2 years. So I understand the ask at this time. I will agree that I do like the bigger vote in November or August, just because we were discussing this with our sheriff and our executive about, I understand from a perspective of, the side that wants it on, that wants it to pass, wants it to be in the cycle that's most beneficial to them. There's no doubt about it, and that's the smart way to go. And then our thought is, well, we represent everybody in the county. We should probably, look at things in a different perspective. But I do have a question for you. I understand the $100 million that came out of the fund to basically kind of separate ourselves from the city of Detroit. But that being said, even with that and with, I don't know, 9% or whatever that equals out to be, we're still at under $400 million, right? And we were shooting for what at the end of 10 years originally?
Original 400.
We were shooting for 400 at the end of 10 years, originally, 400 million. Mm-hmm. All right, so there's 2 years left, and then, all right, adding that 100 million in with the interest that it would have earned in the good times, the track might have taken us pretty close to that.
It is important to remember that the $400 million will just maintain the museum the way it was prior to 2012. Mm-hmm. It will not help us provide the services that we provide today. So what we didn't know when this millage was approved is that the millage would transform the museum and make us go beyond the walls and do this amazing service to the counties. To maintain that, we need at least 600.
So you're looking at
for example, the museum used to only be open 5 days a week, less hours, things of that nature. That
I guess I just want to understand, with the endowment at the level that you guys would hope that it grows to at that time, then it would be a self-sustaining thing based on the market and the investment of it, that money would continually sustain without the millage at some point?
With $400 million, we'll still have to raise a significant amount of money every year, but I think the museum could do it. What we will not be able to do is to maintain the level of services that we have today. We will have to charge for admission, we will have to charge for the filters for the students, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we would maintain a museum as it was.
Right. I understand that, but the new numbers that you're looking to attain, the 600 and the 800, put you in a position where you believe
those are realistic numbers that could meet the current demands of that time. But what I would say is that the people that did, if they did and when they did say that this was a one-time deal, it wasn't a board directive. And, I think they'd look back and say it was a mistake, and they shouldn't have said it at the time, because 10 years is an extremely long period of time. The economics, even when I got on this board in 2007, compared to that till 2010, you had 2 of the major auto companies go in bankruptcy. We lost a third of our revenue. 10 years is a long time. And so what I would say is we shouldn't make a commitment one way or the other, because 10 years, there's going to be different leadership at the county, at the museum. The voters will be different, and leave it up to them to make the decision if they want to continue a partnership at that time.
Thank you. Commissioner Drollet on the second round.
Very briefly, to our representative on the Art Authority Board, where do the meetings take place that you are having with regard to this issue? Here in Macomb, or where?
They take place right here, usually in the library room. right up on this floor, right down here. And it's an open meeting, and we have signs, and they have to get posted.
Great, so I would just go online to look to see when the meetings are
Yes, they have
scheduled.
to post the meeting, and we have a county executive staff person who's assigned to us, who is to get out our agendas and get out our meeting notices, so we don't individually do them, but we have a staff person assigned. And so our meeting is the Monday before Thanksgiving. I don't know if it's the 25th or 26th, from 4 to 6 is our study session, and then our voting meeting will be 4 o'clock on December 3rd.
Okay, thank you so very much.
Yes.
And being that I'm the last speaker, I just want to again thank the two of you, or all of you from the DIA, for coming down and for the work that you've done over the last few years. It has been transformative as far as the approach that you've taken in direction of the museum. So while we may be critical or we may have concerns, it doesn't mean we don't appreciate the direction you've gone. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very good. And I was wrong to say that people wouldn't be here in 10 years. We know Marv will still be right there.
All right, I don't have any other speakers. We have a motion to receive and file. Thank you very much for coming out today.
Thank you.
Thank you. The motion passes 11-0.
Thank you. We're going to go to new business. Any items for new business? Commissioner Kleinfeld?
Thank you, Chair. So I read on the front page in the newspaper about this rapid transit millage, and it said Macomb County will not be involved because we determined we didn't want to have anything to do with it. And it may be that a majority of commissioners don't want to, but I don't remember us ever. Yeah, go ahead, and why don't you?
What? Yes, if you
You guys want to speak to them, you can.
if you have any questions or you want to talk to them, we're going to go into closed session right after our new business, and then we're having another meeting, finance after new business. If you'd like to stay, that's great. But the DIA will be happy to talk to you right now on all of your concerns.
Okay, so
We're still in new business. Commissioners, we're still in new business. Hey, Leon. Commissioner Drolet, sorry. We're still in new business, so we can finish this up here real quick.
So my question is whether we agree with it or we don't agree with being part of it. Did we ever make that decision as a board? Because it was our decision, I thought, to decide whether or not we would agree to put something on the ballot. And I don't remember us having any discussion, and I read it in the newspaper that we decided not to. So I was wondering what happened there.
Commissioner Drolet, you can get in this, and I have a little comment to that also.
Sure. I believe the structure of the RTA is that we don't even get a chance to vote on it as a board to put it on the ballot. It's the executive that determines whether or not we are going to participate or place it on the ballot. So the executive, each county has 2 members of the RTA authority are on the RTA board, and at least one from each of those counties has to approve it or agree to it before it moves forward to place on the ballot.
We didn't do that the last time? We didn't vote last time? Seems to me we voted to put an awful lot of things
Yeah.
on the ballot. Now I'm finding out I never
Nothing.
voted on
But
anything.
Commissioner, I would say that it's not 100% clear but there's one barrier it has to go through, and that's to go through the executive appointments on that board before either we vote on it or the public does. So we don't get a chance to vote on it unless the executive approves. So when they say Macomb County doesn't want to participate, I assume they're meaning that Macomb County's representatives on the RTA board do not want to participate. That would be my assumption.
So well, let me just talk to this, because I've been talking with Dave Woodward from the Oakland County Board, and he called me last week to say, I don't know if you guys know this, but they're looking at something different than the RTA. They're looking at going to some other, and this was just a brief conversation. And although we have asked since way before I was a part of being and sitting in this seat to be involved in these discussions, both from the executive's office and from the RTA executives, we have yet to hear anything from them or ask our advice or our participation into what our communities are actually, what we feel our communities would be interested in. And I just received some notice from someone from Oakland County asking if we'd heard anything because they were getting the resounding no from Macomb County. And I'm not sure that we've resounded yes or no, but technically speaking, the way it's all laid out, we don't have to be included in this. And apparently we're not, unless anyone else knows anything about this. Nothing? All right. So, I mean, we may want to reach out again, and anybody individually or otherwise, to see, you know, if maybe anybody would be interested in participating in, you know, at least a discussion on what's going on, because we hear about it usually at the end, and we've tried and we'll try again to see what's going on. I'm not exactly sure on that. So, any other new business? All right, we're going to go into closed session. Oh, public participation, I'm sorry. I'm not used to doing this way, but here we go. Right way to do it. I know.
Mike Moreau, Sterling Heights again.
Hello.
I hope you didn't think I was against all the good things that the DIA was doing. Did not speak on that subject. What I spoke on was some of these problems that they had back 6, 8, 10 years ago with the funding, with what they did with the salaries. And then during this meeting, as we were coming through here after some of the discussion and the questions that you were asking, what it did, it pointed out the problem with a regional board or commission that's been appointed by an elected board, such as yourself. They go off on their own, they do what they want, they come back and they report. Now, I went back and I didn't analyze it in detail, but I went through and I read the Arts Authority's mandate contract, whatever you want to call it. And there's nowhere in there they can come back and ask you questions. You don't have any true oversight or authority once that commission gets going. And some of the questions in the back and forth here prove that today. What we need is we need to have our elected officials have some input before they do something. This is like saying you give a college kid a credit card, and you say, well, okay, I'm going to come back and I check at the end of the month or the end of the year, this is how you spent your money. Well, you can't go back to January or February and say, you shouldn't have done this, you shouldn't have done that, you shouldn't have done this. What we need to do is we need to know what's going on with our money before they spend it. All of these regions, whether it's the DIA, regional transit, the zoo, all of these things, you are giving your authority and your positions that we've elected you to do, you're passing them on to an unaccountable board of commissioners. And some of the people here, they're saying, well, you know, well, that's the Art Authorities, that's their prerogative, they this, that, or the other. Well, as a taxpayer, I'd rather be able to sit here and talk to you guys. Simple as that. And if you do a good job, I'd like to say thank you very much. And if you don't do a good job, I'll make another letter like this. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Michael. Thank you. Any other members of the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, we're going to close public participation and need a motion to enter into closed session to discuss the United States District Court case number 19-CV-11781, Calvi versus Macomb County and Rhonda Powell. Need a motion? Commissioner Leonetti, supported by Commissioner Romano. Please vote. All right, we're out of closed session. I need a motion to concur with Corporation Counsel's recommendation regarding U.S. or State District Court case number 19 CV 11781, Calvi versus Macomb County and Rhonda Powell. I have a motion by Commissioner Romano, supported by Commissioner Duge. Please vote.
The motion passes 11-0.
Motion passes. Need a motion to adjourn. Commissioner Duge, supported by Commissioner Haw. Please vote. We will have finance in 5 minutes. Meeting adjourned.